Tonight, we begin a quiet passage into the living heart of Zen, where ancient wisdom gently reveals paths toward inner stillness and clarity that seekers have walked for countless generations. These teachings are not simple stories meant to distract your thoughts as you drift toward sleep. They are subtle invitations to recognize the deeper nature of your own being. Each reflection we explore together holds a quiet key, capable of loosening the grip of a restless mind and opening the vast, silent space that has always existed within you, waiting without hurry. As you settle into this moment, feel the steady support beneath your body. Notice how effortlessly your breath moves in and out, how your heart continues its rhythm without instruction. You do not command these processes, yet they unfold with perfect precision. They arise from a deeper intelligence that sustains and guides you with quiet wisdom. That same intelligence knows how to lead you into rest, if you allow yourself to soften and step aside, trusting its gentle movement. Our journey begins with a simple but profound insight at the center of Buddhist understanding. Much of our suffering does not come from events themselves, but from our resistance to them. This truth unfolds softly in the teaching of the empty boat. Imagine a man who finds peace each evening by rowing his small boat across a calm river. As twilight spreads across the sky, he moves through the water with unhurried strokes, watching ripples widen in perfect circles. In those moments, his mind becomes as still as the surface beneath him. The river is his refuge, a sanctuary from the noise of the world. One evening, as he drifts in quiet contentment, he notices another boat approaching him. At first, he calls out gently, asking the other vessel to change course. But the boat continues forward, silent and unresponsive. A subtle tension begins to rise within him. He calls out again, this time with urgency, warning of an imminent collision. Still, the boat does not turn. His calm dissolves into frustration, then anger. Thoughts surge through his mind. How careless! How disrespectful! His body tightens as he prepares to confront the person who has shattered his peace. The collision happens. Water splashes. His heart pounds. He turns, ready to release his fury, only to discover something unexpected. The boat is empty. There is no one to blame. It has simply drifted loose, carried by wind and current without intention. In that instant, his anger evaporates. How can one rage at an empty boat? How can one take personally the movement of wind and water? He feels a quiet embarrassment, realizing how much energy he had spent fighting something that had no will, no purpose, no intention. Within this simple image lies a teaching that can change how we meet life itself. The Buddha taught that we are not punished for our anger, but by it. Every moment spent in reactive fury is a moment taken from peace, regardless of whether the anger seems justified. How many empty boats do we encounter each day? The stranger who acts harshly may be carrying invisible burdens. The colleague who speaks sharply may be struggling with unseen grief. The friend who remains silent may be overwhelmed by their own storms. Yet our minds quickly fill these empty boats with stories of insult and harm. This teaching invites us to pause before reacting, to consider that what feels personal may simply be the movement of circumstances beyond our sight. When we remember this, we free ourselves from the exhausting habit of taking everything to heart. As your breath naturally deepens, allow this understanding to settle gently within you. Feel how your body softens when you release the need to defend against empty boats. Notice how much energy becomes available when you no longer brace yourself for conflict. From the wisdom of empty boats, we flow naturally into another teaching that reveals how peace can exist even amid unavoidable danger. This is the story of the monk and the tiger, a tale that shows how presence itself can become our refuge. A peaceful monk loved to walk through the forests surrounding his monastery. These walks were his moving meditation, moments when he felt deeply connected to the living world around him. The whisper of leaves, the distant call of birds, the shifting patterns of light and shadow all nourished his spirit. One day, his quiet walk changed suddenly. As he turned along a narrow mountain path, he heard a sound that froze his blood, the roar of a tiger. Before he could fully understand what was happening, he saw the great animal charging toward him. Instinct took over. He ran, his robes flowing behind him as the tiger closed the distance. In desperation, he noticed a thick vine hanging over the edge of a cliff. Without hesitation, he grabbed it and swung himself over the precipice, hoping to escape. As he descended, clinging to the vine, his heart sank. Below him, another tiger paced slowly, waiting. He was trapped between two dangers, suspended in the air with nowhere to go. And then something extraordinary happened. His eyes caught a small wild strawberry growing from a crack in the rock beside him. The fruit glowed softly, red and ripe against the gray stone. Instead of surrendering to terror, the monk reached out and plucked the berry. He placed it on his tongue and tasted it. The flavor was sweet, fresh, and vivid. For a brief moment, nothing else existed. Even between two tigers, he discovered a moment of pure presence. He realized that no external circumstance could steal the simple reality of this moment. We all hang between tigers. Above us lie the wounds and regrets of the past. Below us wait the fears and uncertainties of the future. Yet the strawberry of the present moment is always available, offering its quiet sweetness even in the midst of difficulty. The Buddha taught that we suffer not only because life contains pain, but because we abandon the only moment we truly possess. The past lives in memory. The future exists in imagination. But this breath, this heartbeat, this awareness is real. As you rest here now, feel your own strawberry of the present moment. Perhaps it is the gentle weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath, or the simple knowledge that you are safe. You do not need to solve tomorrow tonight. You do not need to undo yesterday. You can simply be here, tasting the quiet sweetness of existence. Presence requires gentle practice. Each time your mind drifts toward worry or regret and you softly guide it back to this moment, you strengthen your capacity for peace. From this understanding arises another essential teaching. Much of our suffering comes from adding unnecessary layers of distress to unavoidable pain. This truth is revealed in the teaching of the two arrows. Imagine the Buddha sitting with his students in a forest clearing. A troubled student asks why life contains so much suffering. The Buddha invites him to imagine being struck by an arrow. The pain is real and unavoidable. This is the first arrow, representing the natural difficulties of human life. Then the Buddha asks him to imagine being struck by a second arrow, created not by the world, but by his own mind. This second arrow is fear, anger, resistance, and the stories we tell ourselves about pain. The first arrow is inevitable. The second is optional. When pain arises, we often add layers of mental struggle. Why is this happening? What if it never ends? What does this mean about me? Each thought becomes another arrow. The Buddha's invitation is simple: feel the first arrow fully, but decline the second. When you stop fighting what has already happened, energy becomes available for wisdom and compassion. As you lie here now, notice any sensations in your body. Instead of resisting them, allow them to exist without judgment. You do not need perfect comfort to find peace. You can be at peace with whatever is present, trusting that rest will come in its own rhythm. From the teaching of the two arrows, we move into another insight: the universal nature of loss and change. There is a story of a young mother named Kisagitami, whose child died suddenly. Overwhelmed by grief, she carried her child from house to house, seeking someone who could bring him back to life. Finally, she met the Buddha, who asked her to bring a mustard seed from a home that had never known death. She went from door to door, but every household had experienced loss. Slowly, she realized that death touched all beings. When she returned, her understanding had transformed. Her grief was still real, but she saw that it was part of the shared human experience. The Buddha gently reminded her that loss is universal. This realization did not erase her pain, but it softened her isolation. Our struggles do not separate us from others. They connect us to humanity itself. As you rest now, feel this connection with all beings who have sought rest after difficult days, who have carried worries into the night, who have longed for healing sleep. You are part of an ancient stream of humanity seeking peace. Knowing this, allow your heart to soften. Compassion for yourself and others naturally arises when you see that everyone struggles, everyone loses, everyone needs tenderness. Let this understanding carry you deeper into rest. Tomorrow will unfold in its own way. For now, you can rest within the quiet fellowship of all beings, held by the same rhythms of nature that have guided countless generations into sleep. As we continue deeper into these teachings, we encounter another wisdom that reshapes how we meet change. The story of a farmer whose response to every event was simply, "We'll see." In a quiet valley surrounded by gentle hills, an old farmer lived with remarkable calm. No matter what happened, he remained steady and serene. One morning, he discovered that his only horse had run away. His neighbors rushed to express sympathy, calling it terrible misfortune. The farmer listened quietly and replied, "We'll see." A week later, the horse returned, bringing several wild horses with it. The neighbors returned again, celebrating his good fortune. Tonight, the neighbors looked at the farmer with wide eyes and voices filled with wonder. They spoke of fortune as if it were a permanent gift, as if destiny had finally chosen him above all others. From a single horse to many, they said, his life had been transformed. Prosperity seemed to have arrived at his door. Yet the farmer did not rush into celebration. He listened quietly, thanked them for their kindness, and replied with the same gentle words that had accompanied every change in his life. "We will see." His calm puzzled them once again. They could not understand how someone could remain so steady in the face of such obvious good news. They left his home shaking their heads, whispering among themselves about his strange and mysterious nature. To them, fortune and misfortune were clear and separate. To him, life was a river whose meaning could not be known in a single moment. Soon, the river turned again. The farmer's son, full of youthful energy and excitement, decided to train the wild horses that had arrived with his father's horse. He chose the strongest stallion, believing courage and determination would be enough to tame it. But the spirit of the wild cannot be forced. In the struggle, the horse threw him violently to the ground. The impact shattered his legs, leaving him unable to stand, unable to work, unable to move freely. When the neighbors heard what had happened, they returned with sorrow in their voices and worry in their eyes. They spoke of tragedy, of terrible fate, of unbearable loss. They imagined the coming harvest, the heavy labor, the burden now resting on the farmer alone. How could he manage? How could his family endure? Yet once again, the farmer listened without resistance or despair. He thanked them for their concern, and his response was the same quiet refrain. "We will see." Time passed, and the world beyond the valley began to tremble. News arrived of war with a neighboring kingdom. Armies marched through villages, calling every young and healthy man to fight. Families watched helplessly as their sons were taken away, knowing that many would never return. When the soldiers reached the farmer's home, they saw his injured son and moved on without hesitation. The broken legs that had seemed like disaster now became a shield. The young man stayed with his family while others disappeared into uncertainty. The neighbors returned once more, their hearts divided between grief and astonishment. They spoke of blessing, of hidden grace, of unexpected mercy. What had once appeared tragic now looked like salvation. Yet the farmer did not cling to their words. His voice remained soft and unchanged. "We will see." This story reminds us of the limits of our judgments. We are quick to divide life into good and bad, success and failure, blessing and curse. But reality is deeper and more mysterious than our minds can grasp. What seems like loss may become protection. What looks like gain may lead to challenge. The farmer did not reject life. He simply understood that its meaning unfolds slowly, beyond the reach of immediate conclusions. As you rest here, allow this wisdom to touch your own experiences. Think of moments you labeled as clearly fortunate or unfortunate. What if their true meaning is still emerging? Feel how your body relaxes when it no longer has to fight against what happens or cling desperately to what pleases it. There is a quiet freedom in not knowing, in allowing life to reveal itself without demanding that it follow our expectations. From this gentle acceptance, we move toward another teaching about how to meet the disturbances of others without losing our own inner balance. One day, as the Buddha sat beneath a great tree surrounded by his students, a man approached with anger burning in his eyes. Jealous of the respect the Buddha received, he came not to learn, but to provoke. His words were sharp, his voice filled with resentment. He hurled insults, questioning the Buddha's wisdom and mocking his followers. The Buddha did not respond. He remained still, his presence unshaken, his gaze calm. The man's fury grew louder, his words more bitter. Yet the Buddha did not defend himself, did not argue, did not react. Finally, exhausted by his own rage, the man demanded an answer. "Why do you remain silent? Why do my words not disturb you?" The Buddha looked at him with quiet compassion and asked a simple question. If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong? The man paused, surprised by the unexpected inquiry. He answered that the gift would remain with the person who offered it. The Buddha nodded gently. "And so it is with anger," he said. "If you offer me your hatred and I do not accept it, it remains with you." The man stood silent as the meaning of these words unfolded within him. He realized that his anger had never truly touched the Buddha. It had always been his own burden to carry. In the presence of such peace, his fury began to dissolve. He saw that holding on to anger was like grasping a burning coal, hoping to throw it at another, while burning his own hand. This teaching reveals a quiet truth about our lives. We often believe that others control our emotions, that their moods determine our peace. Yet in every moment we have a choice. When someone offers irritation, criticism, or negativity, we are not required to accept it. We can witness it without absorbing it, listen without surrendering our inner calm. This is not coldness. It is wisdom. As you lie here now, feel your own capacity for this inner freedom. Notice how peaceful it is to observe your thoughts without being ruled by them. With each exhale, imagine releasing any emotional burdens you may have carried today. Let them return to their source. Allow your breath to guide you deeper into stillness. From this stillness arises another teaching about the nature of all things. In a quiet mountain monastery, a master once held a simple clay teacup during a ceremony. He gazed at it silently, then spoke softly. "This teacup is already broken." His students looked at the cup in confusion. It was whole, uncracked, perfectly formed. How could it be broken? The master explained that although the cup appeared complete, its breaking was inevitable. One day it would fall, crack, and return to dust. When he understood this fully, he could appreciate its beauty without fear of loss. He could love it without clinging to it. Impermanence did not diminish its value. It revealed its preciousness. Everything in our lives is like this teacup. Our bodies, our relationships, our possessions, our moments of joy and sorrow. When we resist impermanence, we suffer. When we accept it, we learn to love more deeply. Knowing that nothing lasts forever does not make life meaningless. It makes every moment luminous. As your body settles into rest, feel this truth gently within you. Your thoughts arise and fade like clouds. Your worries shift and change. Even your difficulties are temporary. Nothing remains fixed, not even your pain. This understanding can soften your grip on everything, allowing you to move through life with greater ease and tenderness. Let your breath become a quiet teacher. Each inhale brings something new. Each exhale releases what no longer needs to be held. In this rhythm, you touch the flow of impermanence, not as something to fear, but as something that frees you. From this wisdom, we move toward another story about generosity and true value. In a prosperous town, a wealthy merchant heard of the Buddha's teachings and felt inspired to offer a gift worthy of such a great teacher. He owned a robe of extraordinary beauty, woven from the finest silk and adorned with delicate golden threads. It was a masterpiece of craftsmanship, rare and priceless. With reverence in his heart, the merchant approached the Buddha, bowed deeply, and presented the robe. He spoke with humility, offering it as a sign of gratitude and respect. The Buddha looked at the robe with gentle appreciation, recognizing both its beauty and the sincerity behind the gesture. Then he smiled softly and spoke with kindness. "Thank you for your generosity," he said, "but I cannot accept this gift." The Buddha's voice remained gentle and unhurried. He explained that such richness did not belong to the life of a wandering monk. What he already wore was enough. His needs were simple, his heart unburdened by excess. Hearing this, the merchant felt surprised and unsettled. Never before had anyone refused a gift of such value. He tried again, speaking with sincerity. "Surely," he said, "a teacher of such wisdom deserved the finest offerings." The robe was meant as an expression of his deepest respect. The Buddha listened with quiet understanding, his eyes reflecting compassion rather than judgment. "If you truly wish to honor me," he said softly, "then let this robe warm someone who truly needs it. Find a person who has little, someone who trembles in the cold, someone whom the world has forgotten. To meet genuine need is far more meaningful than giving luxury to someone who already has enough." The merchant paused. His idea of generosity had always been shaped by status and recognition. Now he felt the ground beneath his understanding shift. The Buddha continued in a calm and steady tone. "True giving," he said, "is not measured by price or display. It is measured by sincerity. It arises when the heart opens toward another's suffering. Often the simplest gifts carry the deepest meaning." That evening, the merchant walked through the quieter, poorer streets of his town. He searched not for admiration, but for need. At last he found an elderly man wrapped in worn cloth, his body shaking in the night air. Without ceremony, the merchant placed the robe around the man's shoulders. Tears filled the old man's eyes. Warmth touched his skin for the first time in many seasons. In that moment, the merchant felt a joy unlike any he had known before. When he returned to the Buddha the next day, his heart felt lighter. The Buddha listened silently, then nodded. "Now you understand," he said. "The worth of a gift is not found in its cost, but in the love and awareness that accompany it. When giving arises from compassion rather than pride, it becomes a path of awakening." This teaching reshapes how we understand generosity. It is not something we do to gain recognition or merit. It is something that flows naturally when we see clearly. The most meaningful acts of giving often appear small and quiet. A moment of attention, a patient listening, a gentle word offered to someone overlooked by the world. These are gifts that transform lives. As you rest here now, feel your own capacity to give in this way. Tomorrow will bring many opportunities, not only with money or possessions, but with presence, patience, and kindness. Each small gesture becomes part of an invisible web of care connecting all beings. Let your breathing deepen as you sense this connection. Each breath you receive is a gift from the world. Each breath you release is a gift returned. Even in breathing, you participate in an endless exchange of giving and receiving. From this awareness, we move toward another teaching about the burdens we carry long after their purpose has passed. Two monks once traveled together along a muddy road after heavy rain. One was old and seasoned, his steps steady and calm. The other was young, still learning the subtle art of letting go. They walked in silence, each movement a quiet meditation, each breath an invitation to presence. When they reached a swollen river, they saw a young woman standing at the edge. Her fine clothing was unsuited for the crossing, and fear filled her expression. She asked for help, her voice trembling with urgency. Without hesitation, the older monk stepped forward, lifted her gently, and carried her across the rushing water. He set her down on the far bank, and she bowed in gratitude before disappearing down the road. The monks continued their journey. At first, silence returned. But as the hours passed, tension grew in the younger monk's face. His thoughts tightened around what he had witnessed. Finally he spoke. He reminded his companion of their vows, of the rules that guided their lives. How could he have touched a young woman? How could he act so carelessly? The elder monk listened quietly, then replied with calm simplicity. "I set her down at the river long ago," he said. Why are you still carrying her?" In that moment, the younger monk understood. His teacher had carried the woman for only a brief moment, then released the experience completely. Yet he himself had carried it for hours in his mind, weighed down by judgment and rigid thought. This story reveals how often we burden ourselves unnecessarily. We replay conversations, relive mistakes, rehearse worries long after events have ended. The elder monk showed another way. When compassion was needed, he acted. When the moment passed, he let it go. As you lie here now, notice what you may still be carrying. Words spoken today, fears about tomorrow, old regrets that linger like shadows. Imagine placing each burden gently beside you. They do not need to accompany you into sleep. With each exhale, feel something being set down. With each inhale, feel yourself returning to the quiet presence of this moment. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that witnesses them. From this release, we turn toward another insight, that true silence is not the absence of sound, but the depth of listening. In the heart of a busy city stood a temple whose walls had sheltered seekers for centuries. Outside, the world roared with traffic and voices. Inside, a subtle peace embraced all who entered. One day, a young musician visited the temple, curious about the quality of its silence. He sat quietly and listened beyond the obvious sounds. Beneath footsteps and distant noise, he heard a faint rhythm, delicate and persistent. Following the sound, he discovered a tiny cricket living within an old wooden pillar. Amazed, he approached an elderly monk and asked how such a small sound could be heard amid the city's noise. The monk smiled gently. "That cricket has lived here for many seasons," he said. "It sings day and night. Yet few people ever notice it." The musician looked puzzled. How could something so constant remain unheard by so many? The monk gently motioned for the young musician to walk with him toward the temple doorway. From the folds of his simple robe, he took out a single coin. Without explanation, he released it, letting it fall onto the stone floor. The clear, sharp sound of metal echoed through the quiet hall. Almost instantly, many people inside the temple turned their heads toward the noise. The monk looked back at the young man with calm, compassionate eyes. "The sound of the coin is no louder than the song of the cricket," he said softly. Yet everyone noticed it at once. People hear what their hearts are trained to seek. They recognize the sound of money, the sound of gain, the sound of possibility. But they walk past the delicate song of the cricket because they have never learned to value such quiet voices. He paused, allowing the meaning of his words to settle gently into the young man's mind. Those who cultivate inner stillness begin to perceive what others overlook. Not only the voice of insects or the movement of wind, but the subtle whispers of wisdom that are always present beneath the surface of ordinary thought. True silence, he continued, is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of awareness that can distinguish the subtle from the obvious, the essential from the merely loud. This understanding reveals something deep about attention and the quality of mind that leads to genuine peace. We live in a world that trains us to respond to what is urgent, dramatic, and demanding. We are taught to chase what shouts the loudest and flashes the brightest. Yet the most meaningful guidance often arrives quietly, almost invisibly, within our inner world. The same pattern unfolds in our own minds. Anxious thoughts, urgent worries, and dramatic emotions tend to dominate our awareness. They pull us toward them with force and intensity. But beneath this turbulence, there is always another layer of knowing. a quieter wisdom that understands what truly matters, a gentle intuition that speaks without urgency, a subtle clarity rooted in our deepest values. Learning to listen inwardly is like learning to hear the cricket within the temple. It requires us to become less reactive to what is loud and more receptive to what is subtle. This does not mean ignoring responsibilities or turning away from real needs. It means developing the sensitivity to discern what deserves our energy and what merely demands it. As you rest here now, surrounded by the soft stillness of approaching sleep, notice what becomes audible when you listen beneath the surface of your thoughts. Perhaps you sense quiet sensations in your body that usually go unnoticed during the rush of the day. Perhaps you feel gentle traces of gratitude or calm that are often overshadowed by stronger emotions. Could there be a deeper wisdom within you that has been speaking in a voice quieter than your fears? This capacity for deep listening naturally leads us to another teaching about learning and transformation. Sometimes our accumulated knowledge becomes an obstacle rather than a doorway. This insight is revealed through the story of a learned professor and his meeting with a Zen master over a cup of tea. A university professor, famous for his scholarly achievements in philosophy and religion, once traveled far to visit a respected Zen teacher. He had devoted many years to studying spiritual traditions, publishing articles, and analyzing sacred texts. He believed he understood Zen well and felt eager to engage the master in profound discussion. When he arrived at the teacher's humble dwelling, he was welcomed warmly and invited to sit. The master suggested they begin with tea. The professor agreed politely, though his mind was already filled with ideas he wished to present. As the master prepared the tea with slow and deliberate movements, the professor began speaking enthusiastically about his understanding of Zen. He quoted scriptures, compared schools of thought, and explained theories of enlightenment and meditation. His words flowed endlessly, filled with concepts and conclusions drawn from years of study. The master listened quietly, neither interrupting nor responding, his attention resting gently on the ritual of making tea. When the water was ready, he placed a cup before the professor and began to pour. The tea rose steadily until the cup was full. Yet the master continued pouring. The liquid overflowed, spilling across the table and soaking into the professor's robe. Startled, the professor jumped back. "Please stop," he exclaimed. "Can't you see the cup is already full? Nothing more can fit inside." The master set the teapot down and looked at him with eyes filled with patience and kindness. "Like this cup," he said quietly, "your mind is full of your own ideas and knowledge. How can I offer you anything new unless you first make space for it?" In that moment, the professor felt a sudden clarity. He realized that his vast learning had become a wall of assumptions. Every new experience was filtered through what he already believed he knew. His cup was so full of borrowed understanding that there was no room for direct insight. The teaching of the empty cup reveals something essential about genuine learning and inner growth. Often, the more certain we are that we understand something, the less able we are to experience it freshly. Our ideas about meditation, peace, and spirituality can become substitutes for the living reality of these experiences. The beginner's mind, what Zen calls the mind that does not know, is not ignorance. It is a profound openness. When we meet each moment without immediately labeling it, judging it, or comparing it with the past, we create space for authentic discovery. A mind filled with conclusions often misses the quiet uniqueness of each present moment. This truth applies not only to spiritual practice but to everyday life. How often do we enter conversations convinced we already know what the other person will say? How often do we encounter familiar situations and overlook new possibilities because we assume we understand them completely? To empty the cup is a lifelong practice. It means gently setting aside assumptions, releasing quick judgments, and loosening the need to control through knowledge. It means approaching each experience with curiosity and humility, as if encountering it for the first time. As you sink deeper into rest, notice what it feels like to empty your cup of the day's accumulated thoughts. Release the conclusions you formed, the judgments you made, the certainties you collected. When all of this is set aside, what remains? What kind of awareness is present when you are not busy knowing anything at all? This emptiness is not barren or cold. It is spacious and alive with possibility, like silence that holds every potential sound, like an open sky waiting for clouds to drift across it. From such openness, understanding can arise naturally, without force or struggle. This awareness leads us toward another teaching about mastery and the power of undivided attention. Long ago, there lived an archer whose skill was spoken of throughout the land. His arrows never missed their mark, and his ability seemed almost beyond human limits. Students traveled great distances to learn from him, hoping to uncover the secret of his precision. Even the emperor honored him, and his name was spoken with reverence across the kingdom. One day, a young archer of considerable talent came to seek his guidance. He had trained diligently for many years, mastering technique and discipline. Yet he sensed that something deeper remained beyond his reach. "Master," the young man said with a respectful bow, "I have practiced with dedication and achieved what many call skill, yet I feel something is missing. Please teach me the essence of your mastery." The old archer studied him quietly and then spoke. "Meet me at dawn tomorrow on the mountain cliff. Bring your bow and arrows." At sunrise, the student arrived to find the master standing at the edge of a steep precipice. Below them, the earth dropped hundreds of feet into a rocky valley. The master stepped calmly to the very edge of the cliff. Without hesitation, he drew his bow and released an arrow toward a distant target. His stance was steady, his movement effortless, his focus complete. Then he turned to the student. "Now it is your turn," he said gently. The young archer approached the edge, and his confidence dissolved. Looking down at the vast drop, his heart raced and his hands began to tremble. Fear flooded his body, scattering his concentration. After several failed attempts, he stepped back, his face pale. "I cannot shoot from there," he admitted. "The height overwhelms me. How can I aim when I am afraid for my life?" The master nodded with quiet understanding. "Now you see the difference between us," he said. "It is not in technique or strength. When I release the arrow, there is only the bow, the arrow, and the target. There is no fear, no hope of success, no worry of failure, no awareness of being judged. There is not even a separate self who shoots. There is only the action itself, complete and undivided. You miss your mark not because your skill is lacking, but because your mind is divided. Part of you aims, while another part fears the cliff, seeks approval, and worries about outcomes. When your whole being becomes one with the act, mastery will reveal itself naturally. This teaching illuminates the nature of excellence in every field. True mastery is not built by accumulating techniques or strengthening the ego. It arises from complete presence, from total absorption in what is being done. We see this in musicians who become one with their instruments, in athletes who enter a state beyond effort, in artisans who lose themselves in their craft. In such moments, the sense of a separate self fades, and action flows from a deeper source. The young archer's difficulty was not a lack of skill, but an excess of self. His mind was split between action and self-protection, between focus and fear. Most of us live with this inner division every day. We work while worrying about judgment. We speak while planning our next words. We eat while thinking about something else. Our attention is scattered across many concerns, rarely fully present in any single moment. The path suggested by the archer is the cultivation of one-pointed awareness. Not tense concentration, but a natural gathering of energy into wholeness, like water settling into stillness. As you lie here now, you have the opportunity to taste this quality of presence. You do not need to achieve anything. Simply be fully here. Feel the weight of your body. Notice the rhythm of your breath. Sense the air touching your skin. When your mind wanders, gently guide it back, as the archer returns his focus to the target. Each return strengthens your capacity for undivided awareness. Notice how peaceful it becomes when you stop trying to be elsewhere. When attention is no longer split between here and there, presence emerges naturally. From this wholeness, we arrive at another insight about our true nature. Often we believe that spiritual practice is about becoming something we are not. But there is a teaching that suggests the opposite, that our essential nature is already complete, and our task is simply to uncover it. This understanding is revealed through the story of a young monk struggling with meditation. Despite years of sincere effort, he felt that awakening remained far away. Seeing his frustration, his teacher chose to guide him in an unexpected way. One day, the teacher led him to a forgotten corner of the monastery where an old mirror stood, covered with thick layers of dust. Once beautiful and clear, it had been neglected for many years. "Do you see this mirror?" the teacher asked softly. "Yes, master," the monk replied, puzzled. "Was this mirror created by the dust that covers it?" "No," the monk answered. "The mirror exists independently of the dust. And if someone wished to see their reflection clearly, what would they need to do?" "They would need to clean it," the monk said, beginning to understand. The teacher handed him a cloth. "Then clean it." Day after day, the monk worked patiently. The dirt of many years did not disappear easily. He cleaned, polished, and refined the surface with care. Gradually, the mirror began to reveal its true clarity. After many weeks, it was restored to perfect brightness. When the teacher returned, he asked, "Did your efforts create the mirror's ability to reflect?" "No, master," the monk replied. "The mirror always had that ability. I only removed what was hiding it." "Exactly," the teacher said with a gentle smile. "So it is with your Buddha nature. Enlightenment is not something you must create. Your true nature has always been clear, luminous, and wise. Practice does not produce awakening. It reveals what has always been present. This teaching transforms how we understand growth. We are not broken beings in need of repair. We are whole beings learning to remove what obscures our natural clarity. The dust on the mirror is made of habits, fears, and stories about who we think we are. These patterns feel real, but they are not our essence. Our true nature is like the sky. Clouds may pass through it, but they never stain it. In the same way, Difficult emotions and confused thoughts may temporarily obscure our clarity, but they cannot damage it. This realization is deeply healing. Beneath whatever struggles you carry, your deepest nature remains untouched. The peace you seek, the love you long for, the wisdom you desire are not foreign additions. They are expressions of who you have always been. Practice becomes a gentle process of uncovering, not acquiring. Each moment of awareness, each act of kindness, each breath of mindfulness is like a soft stroke of the cloth, revealing the mirror's natural brilliance. As your breathing grows slower and deeper, allow this understanding to settle within you. You do not need to become someone else to find peace. You do not need to solve everything to touch your true nature. Right now, the awareness that perceives these words, the consciousness that observes your thoughts and feelings, is already a manifestation of your Buddha nature. You are not a problem to fix. You are a mystery unfolding. You are clarity temporarily wearing the veil of confusion. You are peace gently dreaming itself into worry. You are love quietly learning to remember itself. And as sleep approaches, you can rest in the simple truth that nothing essential is missing. Everything you seek has always been quietly present within you. This understanding gently invites us to look more deeply at how we might become trapped in ideas about truth instead of touching truth directly. Sometimes we hold tightly to explanations, theories, and words, forgetting that they are only doorways, not the destination itself. A simple teaching expresses this insight through the image of a finger pointing toward the moon. Imagine a quiet evening in a monastery garden. The air is cool and still, and the full moon hangs high in the sky, pouring silver light across stone paths and ancient trees. Shadows move softly on the ground, and everything seems to breathe in harmony with the night. A young student walks beside his teacher, his mind filled with questions. He has been studying many Buddhist texts, and the teachings appear complex and sometimes contradictory. Some writings emphasize disciplined practice, while others speak of sudden awakening. Some focus on compassion, others on wisdom. The more he studies, the more uncertain he feels. As they walk, he finally speaks. "Master," he says quietly, "I have read many teachings with sincere effort, yet my understanding feels more confused than before. Different texts seem to disagree with one another. How can I know which teaching is true? How can I choose a path when so many teachers point in different directions?" Without answering immediately, the master stops and lifts his hand, pointing toward the bright moon above them. He says simply. The student raises his eyes and sees the moon glowing clearly in the vast night sky. "Tell me," the master asks gently, "are you looking at my finger or at the moon?" "At the moon," the student replies, slightly puzzled. "And did you need to analyze my finger, compare it with other fingers, or study its form in order to see what it was pointing toward?" "No," the student answers softly. "Your hand simply guided my attention." The master nods and resumes walking. "The teachings, the methods, the practices," he says calmly, "are like fingers pointing toward the moon. They are not the moon itself. If you spend all your time examining the fingers, comparing them, debating their differences, you may forget to look at what they reveal." After a few steps, he adds in a gentle voice, "The moon of truth is not divided into rival schools or opposing ideas. It shines with its own light, whole and complete. Different teachings exist because different people need different guidance. Someone standing in one place may point in one direction, while another person points from another place. Their gestures may appear opposite, yet both direct attention to the same luminous reality. This teaching reveals a common trap on every spiritual journey. We mistake the map for the landscape. We confuse the menu with the meal. We become absorbed in ideas about truth and forget to experience truth itself. All teachings, all practices, all traditions are ultimately fingers pointing toward peace, clarity, and compassion. When they guide us toward direct experience, they are invaluable. But when we cling to them, collecting spiritual ideas as trophies or building an identity around what we know, the tools meant to free us can become new chains. Even the teachings shared here are only pointers. These stories are invitations to your own experience of stillness and awareness. They are not substitutes for that experience. The purpose is not to memorize teachings or become someone who knows about spirituality. The purpose is to taste directly the quiet clarity these teachings indicate. In daily life, you may notice this pattern everywhere. We read about meditation but forget to sit quietly. We study techniques for better relationships but overlook the simple presence of those beside us. We learn methods to reduce stress while feeling anxious about our progress. The invitation is always the same. Use teachings as bridges to experience, and then let the bridges go. Like a raft that carries us across a river, teachings are meant to be used and released, not carried forever on our backs. As you rest here now, you are practicing the art of looking at the moon rather than analyzing the finger. This breath, this soft easing of your body, this quiet unwinding of the day's tension. This is direct experience. No words can fully capture it. Notice how simple it feels to be here without needing to explain anything. The peace you touch now is not the result of understanding concepts about peace. It is the natural expression of your own quiet essence, momentarily freed from complication. This is the moon toward which all teachings point. Not an idea about presence, but the living reality of presence itself. Not a theory about your true nature, but the direct taste of wholeness. As our journey continues, we encounter another insight about how the mind shapes our experience of reality. This wisdom is revealed through the story of a warrior who sought to understand heaven and hell, only to discover that both arise within the mind itself. Long ago, there lived a samurai renowned throughout the land for his skill with the sword and his unwavering devotion to honor. After many years of battle and service, he began to feel a quiet unease. Beyond victories and duties, he wondered what deeper meaning lay beneath his path. Having heard of a wise Zen teacher in a distant mountain temple, he set out on a long journey to seek answers. After days of travel through forests and narrow mountain paths, he reached the temple gate. The master who greeted him was an elderly monk of modest appearance, far simpler than the great teacher the samurai had imagined. Yet the warrior bowed respectfully and spoke of his achievements, his loyalty, and his reputation as a master swordsman. "Master," he said formally, "I have come to ask about heaven and hell. I wish to understand these realms that await us beyond this life." The Zen master looked at him quietly for a moment. Then, to the samurai's shock, he laughed openly. "You call yourself a samurai?" The master said with apparent scorn. "Look at you. A man dressed in armor, filled with pride, yet lacking true understanding. What lord would trust such a figure? You would be wiser to return home than to waste my time with childish questions." The samurai's face burned with anger. Never before had anyone insulted him so deeply. In an instant, his hand moved to his sword. With one swift motion, he drew the blade and raised it above his head, ready to strike. At that very moment, the master looked into his eyes and said softly, "That is the gate of hell." The samurai froze. In a sudden flash of clarity, he saw what had happened. In a few seconds, pride and rage had transformed him into a man ready to kill. His inner state had become a living hell, created not by circumstances, but by his own reaction. Slowly, he lowered his sword and returned it to its sheath. He bowed deeply, this time not out of formality, but from genuine understanding. The master's expression softened. "And that," he said gently, "is the gate of paradise." This story reveals something fundamental about our experience of life. Heaven and hell are not distant places waiting after death. They are states of consciousness created in each moment by the quality of our responses. In a single instant, we can move from suffering to clarity. The samurai's hell was not caused by the master's words, but by his attachment to pride and identity. The insults were only sounds in the air. It was the warrior's reaction that ignited the flames within him. Yet paradise was equally close. When he recognized his reaction and chose humility instead of violence, the inner storm dissolved. In its place arose gratitude and understanding. This teaching speaks directly to our own lives. How often do we create our own hell through habitual reactions? A harsh comment that we replay endlessly. A minor inconvenience that we magnify into catastrophe. A misunderstanding that grows into resentment. Each reaction becomes a doorway into suffering, not because the situation is inherently painful, but because our minds create pain. Yet the gate of paradise is always nearby. When we pause, when we see our patterns clearly, when we choose awareness instead of reactivity, our inner world changes immediately. As you rest in the quiet of this night, feel into your own capacity for this transformation. Notice how your experience softens when you release resistance in your body. When you stop struggling with thoughts and allow them to pass like clouds. This is your own gate of paradise. Not a reward, but a natural state that appears when you stop creating inner conflict. From this understanding, we are led to another teaching about questioning assumptions and discovering unexpected solutions. In a small mountain village, the main road connecting the community to the outside world was blocked by a massive boulder that had fallen during a violent storm. The stone was enormous, deeply embedded in the earth, and impossible to move. The villagers tried everything. The strongest men pushed and pulled with ropes. Others struck the rock with tools, leaving only small marks. Some dug around it, hoping to loosen it, but the ground was too hard. Weeks passed, and nothing changed. The blocked road disrupted trade, travel, and daily life. Desperation spread through the village. Finally, they sought the guidance of a Zen master who lived nearby. When he arrived, he walked slowly around the boulder, examining it from every angle. The villagers waited eagerly, hoping he would reveal a method they had overlooked. After a long silence, the master turned to them with a gentle smile. "Why," he asked softly, "must the stone be moved?" The villagers looked at one another in confusion. "Because it blocks the road," they replied. "It prevents us from traveling and living our lives." The master nodded thoughtfully. The stone blocks one path, but perhaps it opens another." Instead of struggling to remove the immovable rock, he guided the villagers to create a new path that curved gracefully around it. Together, They cleared the ground, laid stones, and shaped a road that flowed naturally through the landscape. As they worked, something unexpected happened. The boulder that once seemed like a curse became a landmark of the village. Children climbed and played upon it. Travelers rested in its shade. Elders sat beside it to watch the sun set over the mountains. And slowly, the villagers realized that what they had once feared as an obstacle had become a quiet gift, teaching them to see beyond the limits of their assumptions. As your breathing grows slower, allow this insight to settle gently within you. Sometimes the path forward is not found by forcing change, but by seeing differently. Sometimes what appears to block our way is quietly guiding us toward a new and unexpected direction. And in this soft awareness, you can continue to rest, knowing that clarity often arises not from struggle, but from gentle understanding. Before long, the villagers began to understand that what they had once feared as a calamity had quietly transformed into a blessing. The new winding road felt softer under their feet than the old straight path. It led them through a small grove of trees they had rarely noticed before, where light filtered gently through leaves and birds sang in hidden branches. When the master prepared to depart, having witnessed this quiet transformation, he offered a final reflection. Some obstacles, he said softly, are not meant to be removed. When we struggle endlessly to change what cannot be changed, we exhaust our energy and deepen our frustration. True wisdom lies in learning how to move with reality, allowing barriers to become doorways and difficulties to reveal unexpected paths. This teaching touches something essential in the way we meet challenges. So often, we become obsessed with eliminating obstacles, convinced that only one outcome is acceptable. In doing so, we overlook possibilities that might be more harmonious than the solution we originally imagined. Our attachment to a single vision can blind us to creative responses that work with life as it is, rather than demanding that life conform to our expectations. The villagers' first reaction was natural. They wanted their road restored exactly as before. Yet their insistence on one outcome prevented them from seeing alternatives that were not only possible, but ultimately more beautiful. Sometimes what appears to be an insurmountable problem is life gently guiding us toward a path we would never have discovered on our own. This principle echoes through many moments of our lives. A job that ends in disappointment may open the door to work that feels more meaningful. A relationship that dissolves in pain may create space for connections deeper than we could have imagined. A health challenge that forces us to slow down may teach us lessons about rest and priorities we had long ignored. The practice this teaching offers is not resignation, but flexibility. It invites us to work skillfully with the immovable stones in our lives rather than exhausting ourselves trying to push them away. It does not ask us to abandon hope or effort, but to discover creative ways forward when our preferred methods fail. As you sink more deeply into rest, consider the boulders you may be trying to move through sheer force. Are there places in your life where pushing harder only increases tension, while a gentle shift in direction might lead somewhere more spacious? Feel how your body softens when you stop struggling against what cannot be changed and begin to open to possibilities you had not yet considered. From this understanding of working with obstacles, we are guided toward another insight about the nature of wealth and contentment. This wisdom is revealed through the story of a monk named Ryoan, who discovered that the greatest treasures are those that cannot be taken away. Ryoan lived alone in a small hut on a quiet mountainside. His life was simple beyond measure. He owned little more than a few robes, a bowl, and a mat upon which he slept. Yet those who encountered him sensed a deep and luminous peace in his presence, a quiet joy that seemed to arise from an inexhaustible inner source. One night, a thief slipped into Ryoan's humble dwelling, hoping to find something of value. By moonlight, he searched through the monk's sparse belongings, but found nothing worth stealing, only worn cloth, simple tools, and ordinary necessities. Ryoan, who had been sitting in silent meditation, noticed the intruder without fear or anger. Instead, he felt compassion for someone driven by need or desperation. When the thief finished his search, Ryoan spoke gently into the darkness. "Friend," he said softly, "you have come a long way tonight, and I am sorry that you leave with empty hands. Please take my robe as a gift, so that your journey will not be in vain." The thief was stunned. He had expected resistance, perhaps even violence, but not kindness. Confused yet grateful, he took the robe and disappeared into the night. Ryoan remained seated in his hut, watching through the small window as the thief descended the mountain path beneath the full moon. The moon shone brightly in the vast sky, bathing forests and valleys in silver light. Gazing at its quiet beauty, Ryoan sighed gently and whispered to himself, "Poor fellow! I wish I could have given him this moon." This simple story carries profound insight into the nature of true wealth. The thief sought treasure and left with a piece of cloth, unaware that he had encountered someone whose riches could not be measured. Ryoan's wealth lay not in possessions, but in his capacity for wonder, freedom from attachment, generosity of heart, and peace untouched by circumstance. Nothing was lost when the robe was taken. His appreciation of the moon remained intact. His contentment did not depend on what he owned. His compassion grew stronger through the encounter. This teaching challenges our deepest assumptions about security and success. We devote enormous energy to acquiring and protecting material things, believing they will bring happiness and safety. Yet the things that can be stolen were never the source of true joy to begin with. The moon Ryoan wished he could give symbolizes treasures freely available to all who are willing to see. The beauty of nature, the miracle of awareness, the warmth of connection, the quiet peace of a settled mind. These riches cannot be bought or sold, cannot be stolen or hoarded, cannot be lost through disaster or decline. And yet, they are the very treasures we most often overlook in our pursuit of what can be possessed. We hurry past sunsets while checking our screens. We miss moments of genuine connection while worrying about how we appear. We overlook the miracle of being alive because we focus on what is missing rather than what is already present. Ryoan's response to the thief reveals another dimension of wealth, the freedom of non-attachment. Because he was not defined by what he owned, loss could not disturb his peace. Because his identity did not rest on possessions, he could give freely without feeling diminished. This does not mean rejecting comfort or neglecting practical needs. It means recognizing that our deepest happiness arises from sources beyond external conditions. When we understand this, we can enjoy material comforts without becoming enslaved by them, seek security without being consumed by fear, and face loss without losing ourselves. As you rest in the quiet abundance of this moment, sense your own access to this kind of wealth. The gentle rhythm of your breath, the awareness that observes your thoughts, the subtle peace that appears when you stop struggling. These treasures belong to you right now. They require no purchase, no effort to maintain, no protection against loss. Notice the quiet moon of contentment rising within your inner sky when you shift attention from what is lacking to what is already here. This is wealth that cannot be stolen, diminished, or eroded by time. It is the treasure that grows the more freely it is shared. From this understanding of true wealth, we are led naturally to another question. How do we choose wisely among the many paths and practices available to us? This wisdom unfolds through the story of a seeker who felt lost among countless teachings, and a master who helped him discover how to choose the right vessel for his journey. A young man had explored many spiritual traditions. He practiced different forms of meditation, studied various philosophies, and participated in diverse rituals. Instead of clarity, he felt increasingly confused. Each tradition claimed to offer the most authentic path. Some emphasized discipline and effort, others surrender and ease. Some focused on compassion, others on insight. Some offered complex methods, others simplicity. Seeking guidance, he traveled to meet a respected Zen master known for practical wisdom. "Master," he said earnestly, "I have studied many paths, yet I feel paralyzed by choice. Each teaching contradicts the others. How can I know which path is right for me? How can I avoid wasting years following the wrong way?" The master listened quietly, then led him to a nearby riverbank where several boats were moored. There were small fishing boats for shallow waters, elegant sailboats built for speed, sturdy cargo vessels, and simple rowboats for quiet exploration. "Tell me," the master said softly, "which of these is the right boat?" The young man hesitated. "The right boat for what purpose, master?" "Exactly," the master smiled. "Without knowing your destination, the conditions you will face, and your own abilities, how could anyone decide which vessel suits you best? A fishing boat is perfect for one task and useless for another. Each boat has its purpose. Spiritual practices," he continued, "are like these boats. They are tools meant to carry you across the waters of confusion toward clarity and peace. Different practices suit different temperaments, circumstances, and stages of growth. The question is not which practice is superior in general, but which one serves you in this moment of your journey." He tossed a small stone into the river and watched the ripples spread. All genuine paths, despite their differences, share a common direction, from suffering toward freedom, from ignorance toward understanding, from separation toward connection. "But how do I choose?" the young man asked softly. "By listening to your own experience," the master replied. "Which practices make you kinder, calmer, and more aware? Which teachings resonate not only in your mind, but in your heart? Which methods help you respond to difficulty with greater wisdom? Trust what transforms your life, not what merely impresses your intellect." After a pause, he added gently, "Remember that the boat is not the destination. Once you reach the other shore, you do not need to carry the boat on your back. Use whatever practice serves you now, but hold it lightly. Be willing to change vessels as your journey changes." This teaching offers guidance for anyone navigating the vast landscape of spiritual possibilities. In our world, we have access to countless traditions, teachers, and methods. This abundance can inspire, but it can also overwhelm. We may spend so much time comparing paths that we never walk any of them deeply. Or we may cling to a single method so tightly that we cannot adapt when our needs evolve. The master's metaphor invites a middle way. Choose wisely, but remain flexible. Commit sincerely, but without rigidity. The value of any practice lies not in its reputation or complexity, but in its ability to awaken more love, more clarity, and more freedom within you. As your breathing grows slower and softer, allow this understanding to settle gently in your awareness. You do not need to find the perfect path. You only need to take the next step with sincerity, listening quietly to the wisdom already present within you. And in this quiet listening, your journey continues, naturally, gently, without hurry, like a boat drifting peacefully across still water beneath the silent light of the moon. Some people discover stillness through silent sitting, while others find it in gentle chanting or mindful movement. Some feel drawn to reflection and study, while others open their hearts through devotion and simple rituals. Some need clear structure and guidance, while others flourish in spacious freedom. This teaching reminds us that the purpose is not to become a flawless meditator or a master of spiritual knowledge. The purpose is to live with greater clarity, kindness, and understanding. Practices are tools, not destinations. As you rest in the quiet flow toward sleep, you may sense that this very moment of allowing yourself to drift into rest is already a form of practice. You are learning the art of letting go. You are discovering how peace arises not through effort, but through gentle surrender. Whether you call this meditation, prayer, or simply quiet presence, the essence is the same. It is the act of creating space for the deeper wisdom within you to reveal itself. You do not need to follow a perfect method or imitate someone else's path. You can trust your own experience. Trust what softens your heart. Trust what brings you closer to silence, wonder, and connection with the mystery of existence. From this trust in direct experience, we are naturally guided toward one of the most profound questions in spiritual life: the difference between understanding something with the mind and realizing it with the whole of our being. This insight is expressed through the well-known teaching of the sound of one hand. Long ago in Japan, there lived a Zen master named Hakuin, famous for guiding students beyond ideas into direct realization. Among his many teachings, one question stood out for its simplicity and depth: what is the sound of one hand? A sincere young monk came to study under Hakuin, filled with longing to understand the heart of Zen. After his initial training, the master gave him this question and said quietly, "Until you truly grasp this, you will not grasp the essence of Zen." The monk bowed and withdrew to contemplate the riddle. How could a single hand make a sound? Two hands could clap, but one hand alone? He applied his sharp intellect to the problem, convinced that careful thinking would lead him to an answer. After days of effort, he returned to the master with confidence. "Master," he said, "I have found it. The sound of one hand is the wind moving through pine trees." Hakuin looked at him calmly. "No," he said softly. "Continue your inquiry." Disappointed but determined, the monk returned to meditation. A week later, he came again. "The sound of one hand is the sound of water flowing over rocks in a mountain stream." Again, the master shook his head gently. "That is still the sound of something outside you. Go deeper." Month after month, the monk offered new answers. The cry of a hawk, the rustle of bamboo leaves, the distant echo of temple bells. Each time, Hakuin quietly refused his response and sent him back to continue his exploration. As the seasons passed, something subtle began to change in the monk. He gradually stopped searching for clever explanations. Instead, he allowed the question itself to enter his life. Rather than working on the question, he let the question work on him. One morning, after many months of silent inquiry, something shifted. While sitting in meditation, the boundary between the question and the questioner dissolved. There was no longer a separate self trying to solve a puzzle. There was only a direct, wordless clarity beyond thought. When he met Hakuin again, the master asked, "What is the sound of one hand?" The monk did not answer with words. His response was presence itself, a silent expression of understanding that required no explanation. Hakuin smiled deeply. Now you have moved beyond searching for answers to embodying understanding. He said, "This is the difference between knowing about the moon and being illuminated by its light." This teaching reveals something essential about wisdom. There is a profound difference between thinking about reality and directly experiencing it. Concepts, however refined, remain distant reflections. Direct realization is immediate, silent, and transformative. The sound of one hand cannot be grasped through thought because it points to what exists before thought divides experience. It points to the undivided nature of reality, the awareness that exists before we separate self and world, question and answer, subject and object. The monk's journey mirrors the path of all genuine inquiry. We begin with ideas, comparisons, and analysis. This stage has value. It guides us and protects us from confusion. But if we wish to touch what the ideas point toward, we must eventually move beyond the mind into direct experience. This shift often feels like a kind of quiet death for the mind that insists on certainty. It requires the courage to not know, to rest in mystery rather than trying to solve it. This truth extends far beyond spiritual practice. You can read endlessly about love, yet reading cannot replace loving. You can study peace, yet studying cannot replace being peaceful. You can analyze presence, yet presence itself is simple and immediate. As you rest here now, you have the chance to move beyond ideas about relaxation into the direct experience of letting go. You do not need to understand how sleep works. You do not need techniques to surrender. You can simply allow. This is the sound of one hand. Not something to figure out, but something you become when you stop trying to figure anything out. It is the peace that exists before you think about peace. The awareness that is present before you become aware of being aware. The rest that is always available when effort falls away. Feel into this simplicity. Let your breath move by itself. Let thoughts appear and disappear without involvement. Let yourself be carried by the same quiet intelligence that grows your body, heals your wounds, and restores you through sleep. This is not a concept to understand, but a reality to soften into, natural, gentle, and immediate, like the silent sound of one hand. As we continue deeper into this calm exploration of wisdom, another teaching begins to unfold. It reveals that the sacred and the ordinary are not separate worlds, but different ways of seeing the same reality. This insight comes through the story of a Zen master who discovered profound truth in an unexpected place, a muddy road that his students had dismissed as unpleasant and meaningless. During the rainy season, a Zen master traveled with his disciples along a country road. Heavy storms had turned the path into thick mud, making each step uncertain and slow. As they walked with care, they came upon a magnificent temple on a hill above the road. Its golden roof shimmered softly in the light. Its walls were carved with intricate designs shaped by centuries of devotion. The gardens surrounding it were arranged with meticulous precision. Inside, Priests in immaculate robes performed graceful ceremonies that seemed like sacred dances. The disciples were deeply impressed by this display of beauty and discipline. After exploring the temple grounds, they gathered around their master, eager to hear his thoughts. "Master," one student asked with reverence, "what do you think of this magnificent temple and its practices? Is this not the highest expression of spiritual devotion? Is this not the perfect place to awaken?" Instead of answering, the master led them back down the hill to the muddy road. He stopped at a particularly messy patch where rain, earth, and footprints had blended into thick, uneven ground. To the student's surprise, he knelt down and placed his hand into the mud. With his finger, he slowly drew a perfect circle. Then he looked at them with eyes full of quiet joy. "The truth," he said gently, "can be found here as well." The student stood in silence, unable to understand. How could this dirty road hold the same spiritual depth as the beautiful temple? What wisdom could exist in mud and discomfort? The master spoke again, his voice warm and steady. "That temple is indeed beautiful, and the devotion of its priests is admirable. But if you believe that truth exists only in special places, only in perfect conditions, only where beauty and order prevail, then you have missed the most important teaching." He gestured toward the circle in the mud. "This ground beneath our feet, this inconvenient road, this imperfect journey, this too is sacred. The Buddha nature you seek in temples is fully present here, in this moment, in these conditions, exactly as they are." One student hesitated and said softly, "But Master, is it not easier to find peace in beautiful and quiet places than in difficult and uncomfortable ones?" The Master smiled gently. "And there lies the subtle trap. Believing that awakening depends on external conditions. When you can find the sacred only in temples, you become dependent on temples. When you can feel peace only in ideal circumstances, you become dependent on circumstances. But when you discover that every moment, every place, every situation contains the fullness of reality, then you are free." He brushed the mud from his hands. "The circle drawn in this earth is no less perfect than the gold we saw in that temple. The awareness that observes discomfort on this muddy road is the same awareness that admires beauty in sacred halls. If you cannot find Buddha here, in inconvenience and imperfection, where will you find Buddha at all?" This teaching touches one of our deepest illusions: the belief that awakening requires special conditions. We imagine that peace will come when life becomes easier. That wisdom will appear when we have more time. That clarity will arise when we escape the messiness of ordinary existence. But the muddy road reveals another truth. Our nature is not waiting somewhere else. It is here, now, in the midst of whatever we are experiencing. The sacred is not separate from the ordinary. The ordinary is the sacred, seen without resistance. This understanding changes how we meet difficulty. The stressful journey becomes a practice of patience. The challenging relationship becomes a teacher of compassion. The discomfort of illness becomes a lesson in letting go. The restless mind becomes a doorway into understanding the nature of thought. This does not mean we stop improving our lives or seek suffering unnecessarily. It means we stop postponing awakening until conditions are perfect, and begin to recognize that even this moment, exactly as it is already complete. As your breathing grows softer and slower, allow this realization to settle gently within you. There is nowhere else you need to go. Nothing else you need to become. Even the muddy road beneath your feet is quietly guiding you home. It means realizing that our capacity for peace, clarity, and compassion does not depend on perfect circumstances. These qualities are already present within us, even as we walk along uncertain and muddy paths. As you rest quietly in this moment, you may begin to sense this truth for yourself. You do not need absolute silence to touch inner stillness. You do not need complete comfort to feel calm. You do not need to solve every problem to experience the spacious awareness that holds both difficulty and ease with gentle balance. The circle of wholeness is here, now. Not carved in gold or ritual, but traced in the simple ground of your present experience. Your breath, your heartbeat, your ability to notice. These are no less sacred than any temple ceremony. This moment, exactly as it is, already contains everything needed for the deepest insight. From this recognition of the sacred within the ordinary, we are naturally led toward another teaching about the nature of true presence. This understanding unfolds through the quiet story of a master who taught his restless student through the simple act of tasting a strawberry. A young monk came to his teacher with sincere longing, but also with growing frustration. Although he had practiced diligently for many years, his mind remained restless and scattered. During meditation, thoughts rose like storms, pulling him away from the present. In daily life, he felt trapped in endless worries about the future and regrets about the past. "Master," he said with visible pain, "I have practiced for so long, yet my mind is still untamed. When I meditate, thoughts overwhelm me. When I try to be mindful, I am lost in commentary about everything I do. How can I find the peace I seek? What am I doing wrong?" The master listened quietly, hearing not only words, but the deep yearning beneath them. "Come with me," he said simply. He led the student out of the monastery and along a mountain path that wound through forests and open meadows toward a high cliff. They walked in silence for a long time. Even as they passed through landscapes of rare beauty, the student's mind continued its familiar patterns of analysis and worry. When they reached a rocky ledge overlooking the valley, the master invited him to sit beside him on the warm stone. Below them, a river curved through fields and forests, catching the light like scattered jewels. From within his robes, the master took out 2 ripe strawberries, glowing red against the gray rock. He placed one before each of them and said softly, "Eat." The student felt confused. He had come seeking profound teachings, not fruit. Yet he trusted his teacher and took a bite. The taste was vivid and complete, sweet and tart, fresh and fragrant. As he ate, something unexpected happened. For a few moments, his mind became completely absorbed in the experience. The familiar stream of thoughts slowed and then stopped. There was only taste, sensation, and presence. When they finished, the master asked gently, "While you were eating the strawberry, where was your restless mind?" The student paused, astonished. "It was nowhere," he said slowly. "I was completely here. There were no worries, no judgments, no thoughts about progress or failure. There was only the strawberry." And during those moments, the master asked again, "Were you troubled by the agitation you described to me?" "No," the student replied with wonder. "There was peace, but it was so simple, so ordinary." The master smiled warmly. "This is the peace you seek. It is not found by eliminating thoughts or reaching special states. It is discovered in complete presence with whatever is here. When you are fully present, past and future lose their power, because they exist only in thought. The student sat quietly, realizing that he had made his practice far more complicated than necessary. He had tried to create an ideal state rather than simply meeting what was already present. But what about unpleasant experiences? He asked. It is easy to be present with a delicious strawberry. What about pain, fear, or sadness? The same presence is available, the master replied gently. The content of experience may change, but the quality of awareness does not have to change. Whether you meet joy or sorrow, pleasure or discomfort, the capacity for presence remains. This is your true freedom. Not the ability to control what arises, but the ability to meet whatever arises with open awareness. This teaching reveals the quiet simplicity at the heart of genuine practice. We often make the path to peace unnecessarily complex, believing we need special techniques or perfect conditions. But the strawberry shows that presence is not an achievement. It is our most natural capacity. Every moment offers an invitation to be here, to release mental commentary, and to experience life directly. When we are fully absorbed in immediate experience, habitual worries and regrets fade, not because we force them away, but because something more vivid replaces them, the richness of direct awareness itself. This presence is not limited to pleasant moments. It is available with whatever arises now. The sensation of tiredness as your body settles toward sleep. The subtle sounds around you. The warmth or coolness of your skin. The gentle rhythm of your breath. All of these can become doorways into the same presence the student discovered. As you rest here, you can taste this teaching directly. You do not need to think about presence. You do not need to achieve calm. You can simply be here. The weight of your body, the softness of your breath, the quiet spaces between thoughts. These are your strawberries, simple gifts opening the same path to peace that has always been available. From this understanding of presence, another realization quietly emerges. Sometimes what we seek most intensely is hidden only by our urgency to find it. This insight is revealed through the story of a sacred mountain that was never separate from ordinary ground. There lived a young scholar named Wei who had spent years studying spiritual texts from many traditions. His shelves were filled with books on meditation, philosophy, and enlightenment. He had memorized teachings, analyzed theories, and debated with other seekers. Yet despite his knowledge, he felt something essential was missing. He understood descriptions of awakening, but had never tasted it. He spoke of peace, yet remained inwardly restless. When he heard of a hermit master living on a mountain revered by seekers, Wei decided to make the journey. He believed that on this sacred peak, he would finally encounter the truth his studies had only described. The mountain was steep and demanding. Paths wound through dense forests, across streams, and along narrow ridges. 4 days, Wei climbed with determination, his anticipation growing with every step. Surely, he thought, at the summit I will find the ultimate teaching. When he reached the master's simple hut, he was welcomed with quiet kindness. After sharing a modest meal, Wei spoke with urgency. "Master," he said, "I have studied the teachings deeply, yet I still hunger for direct realization. What is enlightenment? What is the final goal of the path?" Before answering, the master asked softly, "Would you like some tea?" Wei nodded, though his mind was eager for profound answers. As the master prepared tea with unhurried movements, he asked casually, "What did you notice on your journey up the mountain?" Wei reflected. The path was difficult, he said. There were steep climbs and moments of exhaustion. I had to cross streams and navigate fallen trees. And what else? The master asked. There was beauty too, Wei admitted. Ancient trees, wild flowers, a hawk circling in the sky. At one point, I saw a breathtaking view of the valley below. The master handed him a cup of tea and sat beside him at the hut's entrance. Before them stretched the same vast landscape, mountains fading into distance, clouds drifting across the sky. After a while, the master spoke gently. The truth you seek was present in every step of your journey. It was in the effort and the rest, in the difficulty and the beauty, in the climb and in the pause. It is here now, in this cup of tea, in the sky before us, in the awareness that observes all experience. Wei looked confused. But surely, he said, there must be something special, something beyond ordinary life. Why else would this mountain be called sacred? The master gestured toward the landscape. Is this mountain more sacred than the hill where you were born? Are these trees holier than those near your home? Is this moment more filled with truth than every other moment of your life? As Wei listened, something within him began to shift. Are you saying that what I sought was never hidden here? He asked quietly. The master replied with gentle clarity, you believed it was hidden here. And so the journey was necessary. Sometimes we must exhaust our seeking to discover what was never absent. The path is not about finding what is missing, but recognizing what has always been present. This mountain is made of the same earth as every other mountain. The air you breathe here is the same air you breathe everywhere. The sky above us is the same sky that covers your home. What makes this place feel sacred is not the location itself, but the quality of attention you bring to it. Wei sat in silence, feeling years of restless searching slowly dissolve into something quieter and deeper. The master continued, the truth you seek is not a special experience. It is the simple recognition of awareness itself, the space in which all seeking and finding appear. As the sun began to set, coloring the sky with subtle light, Wei understood something no book had taught him. The sacred was not separate from the ordinary. The ultimate truth was not hidden on distant peaks, but was the ground of every moment. This teaching of the sacred mountain reveals a liberating insight. We spend so much energy searching for extraordinary experiences and perfect conditions. We imagine that truth exists somewhere else, accessible only through rare effort. But what we seek is not absent from ordinary life. It is the very substance of experience itself, momentarily overlooked. Practice is not meaningless. Teachers and teachings matter. Like the journey up the mountain, they serve a purpose. They do not give us something new. They help us recognize what has always been here. They are fingers pointing toward the moon of awareness, useful until we see the moon directly. As you rest in this moment, you can feel this recognition within yourself. The awareness reading these words. The presence observing your thoughts and feelings. This is not something you will achieve in the future. It is what you are now, before all seeking. The sacred mountain exists wherever you bring complete attention to your experience. This breath, this heartbeat, this simple knowing of being alive. These are no less profound than any mystical vision. They are the quiet miracle of existence, always available, yet often overlooked. Let this understanding carry you gently into rest. The peace you seek is not waiting somewhere ahead. It is the awareness in which this very moment unfolds. You do not need to travel far or reach special states. You can rest here, now, in the simple recognition of what has never been absent. From this sense of quiet completeness, another question begins to emerge. If we are already whole, how do we express this wholeness in the world? When we understand our own completeness, the path shifts from seeking enlightenment for ourselves to expressing wisdom and compassion in our relationships. This insight unfolds through the story of an old monk whose response to theft revealed a deeper meaning of generosity and unshakable contentment. Unlike earlier stories, this tale shows how our reactions to others can become gateways to healing, understanding, and profound freedom. There once lived an elderly monk named Joshu, a man who had spent his entire life exploring the deepest nature of existence. Through decades of practice, he had arrived at a state of quiet contentment so complete that he required almost nothing to feel fulfilled. Simple food, worn robes, and a small shelter were enough. His possessions were few and humble, yet anyone who met him sensed a richness that could not be measured. There was a gentle clarity in his eyes, a stillness in his movements, and a warmth in his presence that suggested he had discovered something far more valuable than material comfort. One night, under the pale glow of a lantern, a desperate man slipped into Joshu's modest dwelling. His life had been shaped by hardship and poverty, and he believed that stealing was the only way to survive. As he searched through the monk's sparse belongings, the old man awoke. Instead of fear or anger, Joshu felt only compassion for the suffering that must have driven this stranger to such an act. In a soft voice, careful not to startle him, Joshu spoke. "Friend, you may take anything here that might help you," he said gently, "but I am afraid there is nothing of great value in this place." The thief turned suddenly, expecting shouting or resistance. Instead, he found himself facing eyes filled with sincere kindness. The unexpectedness of this moment left him disarmed and confused. Joshu continued quietly, "Since you have come so far and risked so much to be here, I would be saddened if you left with nothing. Please take my winter robe. The nights are growing cold, and you seem to need warmth more than I do." The thief stood frozen, unable to speak. In all his years of stealing, no one had ever responded with generosity rather than fear. Something within him, long hardened by struggle, began to soften. He asked at last, his voice barely audible, "Why would you give what I came to steal?" Joshu smiled, not with pride, but with quiet joy. "Because, my friend, the only thing truly worth possessing is what cannot be taken away. Everything else, money, clothing, even this body, belongs to the world and will one day return to it. What I truly am, and what brings me real happiness, cannot be stolen by anyone." With trembling hands, the thief accepted the robe. Yet more than the cloth itself, he carried away something far deeper, the realization that such freedom of heart was possible. He had come to take something, but he left having glimpsed a way of living he had never imagined. "What is it that cannot be stolen?" he asked, no longer desperate, but genuinely curious. "The capacity to love," Joshu replied simply. "The ability to find joy in simple things. The peace that arises when we want nothing more than what life already offers. The understanding that giving and receiving are not separate, but two expressions of the same open heart. These treasures grow when they are shared. They do not diminish when they are given away." Years later, the former thief became known throughout the region for his generosity and kindness. He often said that his life truly began not when he learned how to take, but when he encountered someone who showed him how to give from abundance rather than fear. This story reveals a quiet truth about security and wealth. We spend enormous energy protecting what we believe keeps us safe: our possessions, our reputation, our identity. Yet the things we guard so fiercely were never the source of our deepest well-being. Security built on external conditions is always fragile. It depends on circumstances remaining favorable, on people behaving as we hope, on outcomes we can never fully control. Such security demands constant vigilance and creates constant anxiety. But the peace Joshua embodied arose from a different source. It came from knowing that real happiness does not depend on what we accumulate, but on qualities of heart and mind that grow stronger through use. When we give from scarcity, we feel depleted. When we give from abundance, we feel enriched. The difference is not in how much we possess, but in how deeply we understand what true wealth is. Love shared expands. Kindness offered returns multiplied. Peace extended creates more peace. This understanding transforms not only how we give, but how we receive. When our well-being no longer depends on external conditions, we can meet both praise and criticism with calm balance. Praise cannot make us fundamentally happier because our joy comes from within. Criticism cannot destroy us because our worth is not built on others' opinions. As you settle deeper into rest, you may begin to sense your own capacity for this quiet, unshakable contentment. What in your life cannot be taken away by changing circumstances? What within you grows stronger when it is shared? Perhaps it is your ability to be aware, the simple miracle of consciousness. Perhaps it is your capacity for gratitude, for noticing beauty, for offering kindness. These qualities of your essential nature are secure, not because they are protected from change, but because they do not depend on external conditions to exist. This is the treasure Joshua offered the thief. Not only a warm robe, but a glimpse of a way of being beyond loss. The same treasure is available to you now, not as something to achieve, but as the very ground of your being, momentarily obscured by the belief that happiness depends on circumstances. Rest in this understanding. Let it carry you into deeper stillness. You do not need to protect what was never truly in danger. You can soften into the quiet security of your own boundless nature. As our journey moves toward its deepest point, we begin to see that all these teachings point toward a single realization. The peace we seek, the wisdom we long for, and the love we wish to embody are not distant goals. They are the very ground of our existence, temporarily hidden by our searching. This final insight unfolds through the story of a master archer who discovered that true skill does not come from striving harder, but from disappearing completely into the act itself. Long ago, there lived an archer whose reputation had spread across the land. His arrows flew with such precision that they seemed guided by an unseen force, rarely missing their mark. Students traveled from distant regions to learn from him, believing he possessed a secret technique beyond ordinary skill. One day, a young archer who had trained for many years approached the master. His technique was flawless by conventional standards. His posture was balanced, his draw smooth, his aim accurate. Yet he felt that something essential was still missing. "Master," he said respectfully, "I have practiced diligently and achieved what many call skill. My arrows reach their targets, and others praise my technique. But when I watch you shoot, I sense something beyond accuracy. Please teach me the secret that makes your arrows move as if guided by the spirit of archery itself." The master looked at him with quiet understanding. "Tomorrow at dawn," he said, "meet me at the cliff above Eagle Valley. Bring your bow and your finest arrows." When the student arrived the next morning, he found the master standing at the very edge of a high precipice. Below them, the valley dropped hundreds of feet to jagged rock. One step too far would mean death. Yet the master stood there calmly, as if he were standing in his own garden. From this precarious place, he drew his bow and released an arrow. His body was relaxed, his breath steady, his movement effortless. The arrow flew straight and true, finding its mark without hesitation. The master turned to the student. "Now you shoot from here." The young archer stepped forward, and in an instant his confidence dissolved. The dizzy height sent waves of fear through his body. His heart raced. His hands trembled. The technique he had practiced for years collapsed under the weight of terror. After several failed attempts, he stepped back from the edge, his face pale. "I cannot shoot from there, master," he said softly. And in that moment, the master understood that the real lesson had just begun. The young archer lowered his bow, his voice trembling. "The fear of falling washes away everything I have learned," he said softly. "How can I see the target clearly when my whole being is afraid of the edge beneath my feet?" The master listened without judgment, his expression calm and compassionate. "Now you are beginning to see," he replied gently. "There is a difference between skill and mastery. Your technique is refined," the master continued, "yet your mind is divided. One part of you releases the arrow, while another part trembles before the cliff, hopes for success, fears failure, and watches itself performing." He lifted his hand toward the wide sky and the silent valley below. "When I shoot, there is no separate observer standing apart from the act. There is no fear because there is no one who fears. There is no ambition to succeed because there is no one who wins or loses. There is only the bow, the arrow, the target, and the natural harmony that moves through them. In that wholeness," the master said quietly, "there is nothing to miss." The student listened in stillness as the master spoke again. "You have practiced archery as though you were someone acting upon something outside yourself. But true mastery dissolves these imagined boundaries. The archer, the bow, the arrow, and the target are not separate things. They are expressions of one continuous reality. When you vanish into this unity," he continued, "your arrows follow the same precision that guides the stars in the sky and the rivers toward the sea." This teaching reveals the hidden essence of all skillful action, not only in archery, but in every movement of life. Most people live with a divided mind. Part of us acts, while another part judges, compares, worries, and comments. We listen while preparing our reply. We work while imagining how our performance will be evaluated. We rest while secretly checking whether we are resting well enough. This inner separation creates tension in everything we do. Yet there are rare moments when it dissolves. The musician becomes the music. The athlete enters a state beyond effort. The artist forgets the self in the act of creation. In such moments, action flows naturally, without struggle. There is no performer and no performance, only movement arising from a deeper source. The master archer had learned to enter this state whenever he wished. For him, shooting was not an act of control, but a quiet permission for life to express itself through his hands. This is why the cliff did not frighten him. There was no isolated self to protect, only the seamless unfolding of cause and effect. This insight points toward the heart of Buddhist wisdom. The belief that we are separate selves who must control life is the fundamental illusion that gives birth to suffering. When this illusion fades, what remains is not emptiness, but the living, luminous flow of existence itself, temporarily appearing as your life. As you rest now, in the soft quiet of the night, you may begin to taste this unity directly. In deeper relaxation, the familiar sense of being someone who is trying to sleep slowly dissolves. There is no struggler, no controller, only the gentle rhythm of rest unfolding by itself. This is the archer's mind. Present, yet not separate. Aware, yet not divided. Fully engaged, yet completely effortless. Feel the boundary between watcher and watched growing thin. Feel the difference between sleeper and sleep fading away. Let yourself dissolve into the quiet flow of rest, trusting the same intelligence that beats your heart and moves your breath to carry you gently into sleep. From this understanding of unity, we move toward the final recognition to which all teachings point, that what we have been seeking was never truly absent. There is an old story of a teacher known for guiding students with the gentlest of methods. Unlike masters who used harsh discipline or dramatic challenges, this teacher revealed truth through ordinary moments, showing that the sacred was hidden within the familiar. One evening, he sat with a small group of students in a simple courtyard beneath a sky filled with stars. After years of study and practice, one student finally asked the question that lived in all their hearts. "Master," he said quietly, "after everything we have practiced and learned, what is the ultimate truth? What realization ends all seeking?" The teacher remained silent for a long time. He listened to the night, the song of insects, the distant murmur of water, the soft movement of leaves in the breeze. At last, he spoke with a voice gentle as the wind. "You ask about ultimate truth as if it were somewhere else," he said. "You search for final realization as if it were different from this moment. But what if what you seek has been looking through your eyes all along?" The students leaned forward, their hearts open. "The awareness that hears these words right now," the teacher continued. "The consciousness that observes your thoughts and emotions, the simple capacity to experience this moment. This is not a step toward awakening. This is awakening itself, temporarily playing the role of a seeker." One student objected softly. "But my mind is restless," he said. "I still feel fear, anger, desire. How can this ordinary awareness be the ultimate truth?" The teacher smiled with infinite patience. "Does the sky stop being the sky when clouds appear?" he asked. "Does the ocean cease to be the ocean when waves rise? Your thoughts and emotions are like weather passing through the sky of awareness. They do not stain or damage what witnesses them." He lifted his hand toward the stars above. "Look at the night sky," he said. "It contains everything, light and darkness, movement and stillness. It rejects nothing and clings to nothing. It simply allows all things to appear and disappear. Your true nature is like this sky," he continued. "It is the open space in which all experiences arise. Sometimes the mind is calm, sometimes restless. Sometimes clarity appears, sometimes confusion. But the awareness that knows these changes remains untouched." Another student asked, "Then why have we practiced so long? Why study and meditate if we were already what we sought?" The teacher's eyes sparkled with quiet humor. "Why does the sun rise each morning?" he replied. "Not because darkness must be defeated, but because shining is the sun's nature." "Your practice did not create your true nature," he said gently. "It was simply the natural movement of that nature recognizing itself." "A wave does not practice becoming the ocean," he added. "It already is the ocean, temporarily appearing as a wave. You do not practice to become awareness. You are awareness, temporarily playing the role of a practitioner." As the night deepened, the teacher offered one final pointing. "Right now," he said softly, "notice the awareness that is aware of these words. Do not analyze it. Do not try to grasp it. Simply be it. This awareness has been with you since childhood. It is with you now. It will be with you in your final breath. It needs no improvement, no effort, no maintenance. It is simply what you are. The peace you seek is this awareness at rest. The wisdom you pursue is this awareness knowing itself. The love you cultivate is this awareness recognizing itself in all beings. You are not separate from what you seek," he said gently. "You are what you seek, temporarily dreaming of separation." In the silence that followed, something shifted within the students. They realized that their journey had never been about gaining something new, but about removing the veils that hid what was always present. They were like travelers searching for glasses already on their faces, like someone looking for the sun with a lantern. This final teaching gathers all the wisdom we have explored. You are not broken, not incomplete, not lacking. You are consciousness itself, temporarily appearing as a human life. Your struggles, emotions, and challenges are like waves on the surface of the ocean. They are real, yet they do not define the depths of what you are. The awareness that witnesses everything remains untouched, just as the sky is untouched by storms. As you rest in this understanding, feel the simplicity of being aware. You do not need to improve this awareness. You do not need to use it to achieve anything. Simply allow it to hold whatever arises. Your breath flows naturally. Your heart beats without effort. Your body knows how to heal and restore itself. All of this is the same intelligence quietly caring for the form it inhabits. Let yourself sink into the deepest rest, not the rest of someone trying to sleep, but the rest of awareness recognizing itself. You are not separate from peace. You are peace itself, temporarily wearing the costume of a seeker, now gently returning home. In this recognition, seeking ends, not because something has been found, but because it is seen that nothing was ever lost. Rest now in this truth. Let it carry you into sleep, not as escape, but as return. May your dreams restore your body and soften your heart. May you rest in the quiet knowing that what you have always sought has always been you. Sleep gently, and remain in the silent light of awareness.